Greetings Exiles and welcome to another League Start to Endgame build guide. This time the pure physical Impale two-handed Cyclone Champion. The build I am maxed in Harvest League and killed Awakener 8 on before I could react and press my Flasks. This build offers a super smooth and easy Cyclone playstyle, incredible damage because Impale is still extremely OP, and solid defenses. I cleared the whole game on it, including Uber Elder, Sirus, tier 16 juiced maps, all League mechanic bosses, Delve 83, and of course everything on Awakening 8 on a relatively low budget of around 9 Exalteds in Harvest League. This build is perfect for anybody who wants a smooth and highly efficient playstyle without having to care too much about anything else than chainsawing through enemies, no matter if you are a beginner or advanced player. The build works as League starter and scales heavily into late game. All the footage you will see in this video is not on the min-maxed version, but on the relatively cheap 9 Exalteds starter version. As always, PoE, timestamps and everything else is in the video description, and make sure to install the PoE community patch. Nearly everything can be found within the PoE notes, so make sure you check them out as well. Hi there. Apart from the obvious strengths in OP damage because of Impale scaling and a huge life pool combined with a lot of armor, evasion, overleech and fortify, this skill is extremely easy and smooth to play and clears maps just about the right speed thanks to the skill mechanics of moving while attacking. The about 99% no-brainer playstyle comes at a small cost of a not so lightning fast mapping speed because your AoE is kinda limited by your own scaling. And against bosses, as long as you dodge the most devastating mechanics, which by the way is super easy since you can move while cycloning, you will barely ever have a hard time, but face tanking is generally a no-go. I already mentioned the 99% brainless playstyle because I believe there's no such easy skill as Cyclone. So yeah, you basically, to kill things, you hold Cyclone and in between packs you just move and use your movement ability. Nothing special going on here. Don't forget to activate your Blood Rage and go into Sandstance when entering a map. Against bosses, you will then go into Blood Stance for more damage but less AoE. You will also place your Arcanist Brand and Ancestral Warchief Totem for greatly increased damage if necessary, and then you just go ham. Don't forget to keep up your Blood Rage and replace both the brand and the totem only if you got the time during the boss fight. You are dealing a lot of damage without these damage buffs, but you know, you wanna one-shot everything. Now that you got an overview over the character, let's get a little bit more specific. As always, a lot of additional information can be found within the PoE notes section. Keep that in mind if you have any questions. Let's start the section with how to level the character to maps. I leveled with Perforate and then on 28 I swapped to Bladestorm. You can actually use Cyclone starting at level 28. But I personally do not recommend that because Cyclone needs gem level scaling before becoming an actual real skill. You will see what I mean once you try it out. As a duelist ascending into a champion, the first Ascendancy node I took was Unstoppable Hero. A really strong damage boost and an even larger defensive boost from armor, evasion and stun immunity while fortified, which you will always be due to it being your most important main link support gem. Keep that in mind. Always socket in Fortify support. After that, I chose Master of Metal for even more DPS once you got your Impale scale going, which should be around the level of getting your second lap done. The last nodes were Conqueror for some defense and taunt, followed by Worthy Foe. This makes it unnecessary to go for accuracy in the build, which makes it an overall extremely huge damage boost in the late game. As Bandit, I went to help Illyria first because mana regen, resistances and crit multi are valuable stats early on. For the deeper late game with good gear, you will then swap to the 2 passive points instead. I do not want to go over every specific gear slot here, since you got all within the PoE with examples and some roles you want to look out for. I only want to go over a few specifics here. First of all, there are actually 4 gear sets here, and I'm going to focus on the endgame setup. Recommended progression steps from the early league start to the endgame setup can be found within the PoE note section as well. Let's have a look at uniques. As weapons, you want to start with a Terminus Est. It offers both high damage and nice utility from the movement speed and frenzy charge generation. You would then swap to a Starforge for a nice mix of huge damage and also some life. Alternatively, you can choose to get a high PDPS crit rare two-handed sword as well, but I did everything just fine on a Starforge. As body armors, there are a lot of viable options, but by far the best when it comes to cost efficiency is Loreweave. Huge elemental defense from the 78% max res and some life. It also grants a lot of damage from the added physical damage and the crit, while the all attribute roll helps you out with getting the necessary dexterity and intelligence. Offering to the Serpent are my favorite gloves in basically all melee builds because of the high damage rolls and super high defense from Overleech. Check implicits on PoE trade and then choose whatever you need and can afford. The rest of your main gear is rare. Make sure to cap out all your elemental resistances and get the necessary attributes. Also, stack as much life as possible since this is your primary defense. You can also go for damage rolls like attack speed, physical damage to attacks and crit multi. In addition to that, I also crafted minus mana cost to make the build a lot smoother by never running out of mana. I personally went for 2 channing rolls to lower the cyclone cost and 1 non-channeling to make it easier to keep up your mana while not attacking but moving around and using your movement and Warcry. I recommend trying out different combinations of rolls here. Maybe you only need 1, maybe you need 2, and maybe you want all 3. On rare jewels, go for life as defensive and crit multi or attack speed as offensive priorities, and if necessary go for some resistances and attributes. For the latest stages of the build, I also highly recommend getting cluster jewels, which are usually somewhat expensive. You can find all information on those within the PoE. If you want to go for enchants, which are not that strong on this build, then I recommend 15% cyclone attack speed over the 40% damage increase on the helmet. On gloves, reflection or light are nice, and on boots, either movement speed or attack and cast speeds are the best options in most cases. There are 3 mandatory flasks here. An instant life flask, which will work as an emergency button when you see your HP dropping low, a diamond flask for huge crit and thus damage scaling, and a quicksilver flask for mapping to be even faster. I then also went for a silver flask to get onslaught, which is another damage and speed buff. As last flask, I recommend trying out a Lion's Roar. This one comes with a knockback on hit, so if you don't like that, then do not use it in maps, but use it against the biggest bosses for a huge damage multiplier. So, if you don't like the knockback, what can you choose otherwise? You can go for a Granite for armor, or a Basalt for physical damage reduction. Something like a Rumies could work as well. Just try different things and stick with what you like the most. Also, make sure to get Blade, Freeze and Curse immunity for maps on your magic flasks. As Anointment, and this is my usual recommendation, freedom of movement for early mapping because it grants movement speed and phasing. Later on in this build you want to go for Blade Dancer as a really strong and also a cheap damage boost, and once you get your cluster duels going, you can go for Fatal Light. As defense, you want something with life, armor, fortify effect, or, just the defense you think you need the most. You can find all the gem setups and gem links within the PoE, so I will only go over a few specific things here. First of all, put the links wherever they fit best into your gear for easy color setups. That's especially true for 4 links. In your main link, I recommend using Pulverize in maps and melee physical damage for bosses. The swap is not necessary at all, but it boosts your damage a bit at the cost of some AoE. If you are lazy, then stay on Pulverize for all content, which I usually did. In the beginning of the league, you won't be able to activate all of your auras. I recommend not using Flesh and Stone until you got an Enlighten 3 and only support it with Maim once you got minus mana crafts. But depending on your gear and the state of your character, you might want to try out different combinations of auras and Mana Reservation things, so yeah, you should stay open-minded on this one. Your Arcanist brand applies the curse of your choosing. I would actually say Assassin's Mark is the best here, and also casts Purifying Flame. Why Purifying Flame, you might ask? That's because it creates Consecrated Ground, which is both a strong crit buff against enemies standing on it, and life regen for you when you are standing on it. And since Cyclone is one of the most melee skills in the game, you are usually going to benefit from both of these effects. When it comes to a war cry, choose which one you prefer. Enduring Cry for defense or Intimidating Cry for offense. Also, what I did was having the war cry on autocast, which means you put it on your left click, and whenever you are using your left click to move, you will also automatically cast the war cry without interruption as soon as you have the Call of Arms on the passive tree. There's nothing special going on Pantheon wise, so I'm simply going to recommend what I would usually recommend on any build. As Major, Lunaris in maps and Solaris for bosses. If you have problems with chaos damage, then Arakali might be worth it as well. As Minor, Ralakesh provides blind and maim immunity if completed. Good cool would be some really nice defense. And Shakari, again, if you have problems with chaos and poison damage. There you have it, my Cyclone two-handed champion. Let me know if you liked it. I hope I didn't forget anything important, but if you still have questions, look through the PoE notes, YouTube comments, and maybe check the Discord or come by my stream during league start at twitch.tv/play_like_J. All the necessary links are in the video description. Feel free to ask anything that's unanswered and make sure to like and subscribe for more awesome PoE, upcoming PoE 2 and future ARPG guides, discussions and rankings. But that's it from me for now. Enjoy the Sirus Awakening 8 kill, and I will see you in Breaklast. Maybe as a Cyclone Champion? Good luck and thank you very much for watching. I am Jay, and I'm out.
The others found strength in their projections. They became reliant on them. I am not so foolish.
I run with support! Creation itself! Obliteration!
Is life really interesting enough to warrant all this pain? Be silent.
I can't do this just yet.
I have
futility of your efforts.
Watch Ulti crumble! Rain of stars! Glorious flames! Be utterly annihilated!
The edge of death, my heart races. I am alive. Feel the thrill of
The void! Everlasting fire!
At least I felt something.